Hi, first grade students. Hope all of you are well. We are going to have a lesson in grammar. I want you to first get out your reference section, your grammar book that you should still have at home. I would like you to turn to page 21. Page 21. We don't need the whole page. All we're going to look at for now is reference 24, contractions. Okay? Contractions are words that were at one time two words, and now they've been squeezed together to make it easier to talk, a faster way to talk. But you also have to have an apostrophe in contractions. Contractions always have apostrophes. All right? An apostrophe. It's different from possessive nouns, so don't get mixed up with that. Just focus for now on contractions. So, let's go ahead and look together here. The first word they have here is isn't. It's spelled I-S-N apostrophe T. Isn't is contraction for the two words is not. So you can still, it's totally fine. It's proper to use either one of these terms. Is not becomes isn't when you contract it, and isn't becomes is not when you separate it back into two words. And in their example sentence, they have, the pen is not here. The pen isn't here. See, they both mean exactly the same thing. All we're doing is slightly shortening the sentence. And I should say, though, that many, when you start writing in formal writing later on, probably maybe at least a couple years from now, formal writing, they often do not like students to use contractions. They want you to write out the whole word. But don't worry about that for now. You have been speaking this way all your life. Sometimes you have been saying the contraction way, and sometimes you have been saying the two-word way. And it's either one means the exact same thing. Let's go ahead and look at our next contraction is aren't. A-R-E-N apostrophe T. When you split it back out to two words, it is are not. Let's read the sample sentence. The books are not new, or the books aren't new. See, it's the same exact meaning. We just shortened that sentence slightly by contracting those two words. Our next contraction is wasn't. W-A-S-N apostrophe T. When they're split back out into two words, they become was not. Our sample says, the cat was not outside. The cat wasn't outside. Means the exact same thing, it's just slightly shorter with a contraction. Finally, we have weren't. It's spelled W-E-R-E-N apostrophe T. When we split it up, it becomes were not. Let's read the sample sentences. The boys were not early. The boys weren't early. So again, it just means the exact same thing. Just an easier way to talk. Let's go ahead and turn the page to page 22. Just the very next page. Page 22. Oh, yeah, up here. Okay. So all of this we're not focusing on right now. We'll focus on that another day. For now, we're just going to look at reference 25. More contractions. These are all common contractions. I wanted you to see both references. So here they have I'm, very common, I apostrophe M, or I am. I am not home. I'm not home. Can't and cannot. You cannot go. You can't go. Don't and do not. We do not see you. We don't see you. Doesn't and does not. The man does not hear. The man doesn't hear. Didn't and did not. I did not know. I didn't know. All right. So I wanted you to see all of those. We're going to go ahead and do our first contraction lesson. Please go ahead and find the practice sheet I gave you, which is page 49. At the top, it'll say chapter 22. Excuse me. Practice 3. And by the way, if I did not put your name on there, please stop right now and put your first name up there so I know who I'm grading when it comes back to me. Okay, let's read the directions. It says, underline the correct contraction at the right for the words that are underlined in each sentence. Use reference 24 on page 21 to help you. You are welcome to go use the reference book if you need to. You might not need to, but it's always good when you're new at certain concepts to make sure that you are on the right page, on the right path. So if you'd like, you can keep this open, page 21 of your reference section. Let's take a look at number 1. It says, let's read together, okay? My crayons are not missing. So we know that are and not, the two words, can be squeezed together and made into a contraction. Is it the word isn't, or is it the word aren't? Think about it. Are not, isn't, or aren't. I hope you kids know that it's aren't. I think it's pretty easy because it looks really close to the spelling of the same aren't and are not. All right? Most contractions will stick pretty closely to the spelling. There are a couple exceptions, but we'll talk about those later. And also, the place that the letter that is being dropped is O in this case, in all of these this time. These and where the O is dropped, it becomes the apostrophe. So R and where the O is supposed to be is now an apostrophe T. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to number 2. Please read it with me. His pencil is not sharp. His pencil is not sharp. The correct contraction might be isn't or aren't. I bet you kids know right off the bat. Is not becomes isn't. Please underline that just like I did. We have those two done so far. The rest, I think, you can do on your own. I want you to go ahead and take a look at are not and determine if this is the contraction for are not and if this is a contraction. I want you to take a look at was not, determine that. Was not again, determine that. And were not, determine that. Please do just like we did up here. I want you to underline the correct one and move on. Let's go on to the next lesson. I want you to come back and do this on your own. But right now I'm going to show you a little more. Actually, this is very much like the one we just did. They're using the contractions, or the two words was not, are not, were not, and is not. So all 4 of these are going to be similar to the contractions up here. Was not, what does that become? Well, let's go ahead and do that one since we're actually writing it out on our own. Was not becomes the contraction wasn't. You know what? We should always read the directions too. Let's do that quickly. Write the correct contraction in the blank for the words that are underlined in each sentence. Use reference 24 on page 21 to help you. And so that's exactly what we did. The bread was not as underlined, fresh. The bread was not fresh. I know that the contraction for was not is wasn't. So I wrote wasn't. And let's go ahead and let's do number 2 also. Remember, you're usually dropping one letter, not always, but usually. Well, for these easier ones, these first ones you are. My clothes are not packed. Let's go ahead and think what would be the contraction for are not. We can either look in our reference book or we can look up here because we're using the same contractions. Are not becomes aren't, which I see from up here is A-R-E-N apostrophe T. Are not became aren't. Okay? I want you to try the last 2 on your own. You're going to do just exactly what we did there. The 2 underlined words are going to become a contraction that you write over here. And the same thing there. This next lesson, the bottom lesson, we're going to do just the opposite. We are going, oh, my light keeps going out. Huh. We are going to make these 2 words, actually it's not the opposite. We're going to make these words into contractions that we studied on page 22. Let's go ahead and read. Write the correct contraction in each blank. Use reference 25 on page 22 to help you. So it says, I am. Please feel free to go back to your reference section, and now you're going to be looking at page 22 at the very top. If you need help, and you probably will at first. It's important to get this right. So let's take a look. It says, I am. I can't remember how to spell the contraction for I am, but I see here, I am is actually I'm. So I'm going to come back here and write I, of course, uppercase I, apostrophe M. I'm. So number 2, it says cannot. So I am going to look back at the top of 22 again and find out what cannot becomes. Cannot becomes the contraction can't. C-A-N apostrophe T. And that's exactly what I'm going to write here. C-A-N apostrophe T. So on your own, you're going to come back and do these. Remember, in each section, you have some to do on your own. You have these to do on your own, these, and these. For now, though, please turn the page. I made one more section mandatory. It's just this final section here. All of this is optional, but this top part, I do want you to do. It's pretty much the same that we've been doing, but let's read the directions to be sure. Write the correct words beside each contraction. Use reference 25 on page 22 to help you. So, if you need to, that's perfectly fine. Our first word here is, our contraction here is didn't. I think I know what didn't becomes when it's split into 2 words, but I better check and see here. And that's what I want you kids to do. Feel free to repeatedly come here. Didn't, 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 didn't. Ah, I found it. Didn't, when it's separated back into 2 words, it becomes did space not. And that is exactly what I'm going to write here. Did space not. Okay? Didn't contraction becomes, when we separate it back out, and my T is not very good, is it? Okay. Becomes did not. Did not is didn't is did not. Go ahead and finish the rest of these on your own. You are totally free to use reference 24 and 25 for any of these. I'd love for you to challenge yourself and do the rest. But you know what? I'll leave it up to your parents. They know best if you are over. If just if you're able to handle it right now with all your other work, if it would be great practice for you kiddos to go ahead and do the rest. Okay, but it's not mandatory. All right, so I'm going to close off and do our last grammar lesson for the week.